I feel like I need to make this recording. I don't want to make this recording, but I feel like somebody has to make this recording. I don't even want to really talk about anything, but there's been enough mass shootings, and really one is enough, but the tragedies keep happening, and I feel like I need to make this recording because a lot of this debate on guns and everything having to do with them, one of the arguments I keep hearing from people is that it's a mental health issue. And I've seen people on the news talk about it, cops, doctors, celebrities talk about this issue, people that, like the NRA, people talk about it. None of the people I've actually seen talk about this issue are mentally ill people, are people that need mental health care. They're saying that it's a mental health issue, or they're saying that it's a gun issue. And as an insane person, as somebody that has a mental disability, I can't think of a more insulting thing to say to somebody that you genuinely are concerned might shoot up a building than to focus on mental health. I don't say that because I don't think those people don't need mental health. They obviously need mental health care. They obviously need help. But I say it's insulting to say it's just a mental health issue. Because as somebody that's insane, and somebody that is mentally disabled, the current mental health system is so broken that it's insulting to say that you expect people you genuinely believe are going to harm themselves or other people to rely on that. Somebody that's insane needs to make this recording. Somebody that has a mental disability, has a mental illness that's disabled, needs to make this recording because it's not a mental health issue and it's not a gun issue. There's an issue in this country, and I'm gonna say things people aren't gonna like to hear. I'm gonna say things I don't want to say, but I'm gonna talk about my experiences, and I'm gonna try to only talk about my experiences. There's gonna be examples I'm gonna use as an example, but I'm gonna try as much as I can to just keep it about my own experiences as somebody that's actually insane with a mental illness, living in America, trying to get mental health care. There's an issue in this country that there are mentally ill people, mentally disabled people, whether they've been diagnosed yet or not. And I'm not saying this about all mentally ill people, but enough people that at least twice a day, every single day, they think the only option they have is to walk into a building with a gun and shoot the place up. And I'm saying that as somebody that's insane, that's never bought a gun, that's never owned a gun. I genuinely don't even know the process it takes to buy a gun. And I'm saying that somebody that's mentally ill needs to make this recording, because if you tell people that it's just a mental health issue, more people are going to die. And I'm saying that as as an insane person that's never bought a gun, as an insane person that's never owned a gun. And I'm gonna keep repeating that as I make this recording. I'm gonna talk about my experiences because That's the only way I can actually explain how bad and near non-existent the healthcare system in the United States is. And I'm only saying it's a system because I don't know another word to put in place of system, even if it's not a system. So I don't want to use the word system, but I don't know of another word to put in place in that. This broken, almost non-existent thing that exists in this country. And it's frustrating for me to make this recording because as somebody that's disabled, as somebody that's got a mental illness, I am trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to go to appointments and try to take these medications. If I don't feel like I can be safe around myself or other people, I go to the hospital, and I feel this way. And I've never bought a gun, and I've never owned a gun. And if I feel this way, and I've never owned a gun, I've never bought a gun, I can't even imagine how people feel that are insane that own guns, that buy guns, that have guns. As an insane person, somebody that's mentally ill, somebody that's mentally disabled, in the United States, healthcare and mental health care are different. I don't know how healthcare works in other countries, but in the United States, if you break your leg and you go to the hospital, the doctors at the hospital are going to treat you like you have a health issue, and they're going to deal with your broken leg. If you have a nervous breakdown and you go to the hospital, you're not going to get treated like you have a health issue. Your mental health is seen as a punishable offense in the eyes of healthcare in the United States. Mental health care is not treated like a health illness. It's treated like a punishable offense. And I'm going to bring up experiences I've had in my life that hopefully outline that, because you want people to just focus on mental health, and this healthcare that currently exists is so bad that what I'm going to say later on, I hope that jars some people that don't know people with a mental illness or haven't had experience with people with a mental illness to actually know just how bad mentally ill people are treated in the United States. So, I was adopted, and my adoptive parents, this is gonna go back to what I said earlier, that in America, if you have a health issue, it's treated like a health issue. But if it's a mental health issue, it's seen as a punishable thing, like robbing a bank or stealing a car. It's not seen as a health issue. So, when I was growing up with my adoptive parents, there was a time when I was so depressed that I had chest pains. And the chest pains were so bad that my adoptive parents made me get a chest ultrasound, a heart ultrasound. So the health issue, they thought something was wrong with my heart, and they were fully okay with giving me this heart ultrasound. Well, the heart ultrasound came back fine, so I don't have any heart problem. But I was so depressed that the depression was manifesting as physical chest pains. So once my adoptive parents found out that it was no longer a health issue but a mental health issue, I got in trouble for being depressed. I didn't see a therapist, I didn't get medications, I got in trouble for making my parents basically find out I was depressed. Another incident that happened, I have an Aunt Dina, and she's a nurse. She does phlebotomy and is an X-ray technician. I can't even remember how it was found out that I was suicidal, if I told somebody. I don't even remember how it was found out, but I was suicidal. And I was about to start basketball practice, and my Aunt Tina shows up, and she's a nurse, by the way. I have to keep reiterating that she's a registered nurse. She did this. To give you an idea of how mental health is treated in the United States. So, she came to my basketball practice and announced to my entire team that I was suicidal and that I was on a 72-hour hold. She didn't take me to the hospital. She didn't get me to a psych doctor. She took me to her house and told me that because I had been adopted by my adopted parents, me being suicidal was being ungrateful to them. So she reprimanded me for being suicidal, and then when my adopted mom came to pick me up, I was grounded for being suicidal. And I'm not laughing because I think this is funny. I'm gonna laugh at terrible things, and I'm not trying to be rude or belligerent. That's the best way my brain can come up to deal with what I'm saying. So me laughing, I don't think it's funny. My brain doesn't work correctly, and that's the best it can come up with to deal with it. Because I was adopted, my adopted parents had to let me see a counselor. But the counselor told me, during one of our very first appointments, she wasn't really going to listen to me because I was a child. So she was just going to be kind of like a third parent. She wasn't going to actually work through any of the trauma I had before I was adopted. She wasn't going to help me with any of the mental illnesses I had. I don't even think I got a diagnosis from that woman, as far as I can remember. Or if I did, I was never flat out told what it was. So getting grounded for being suicidal meant that trying to talk to my therapist was like being reprimanded by a third parent. So she didn't actually, the very person we're supposed to get mental health from, she didn't give that to me. She flat out told me she was not going to give me that help. So I didn't get help with any mental health care. Because mental health is seen as a punishable action, many children that are mentally ill or disabled are disowned by their parents. And it's completely okay to do. So my adoptive parents disowned me the last semester of my senior year of high school. And they sent me to my birth dad's house in Los Angeles. My birth dad told them multiple times he couldn't financially take care of me, but that's how mental illness is treated in the United States, right? Rather than give somebody who is mentally ill or mentally disabled help, they're just going to get rid of them, right? Because adoption, I have to explain how adoption is treated in the United States as well. Adoption it does not have anything to do with wanting to take care of the child. It has nothing to do with wanting to love the child. It's purely transactional. It's purely like a business deal. Right? If you go on these adoption websites, it's no different than trying to go on Amazon and buy a pair of shoes. Okay? So you treat these kids like they're a pair of shoes, and you put them on these adoption websites, and these adoptive parents, they adopt these kids, and if they aren't the pair of shoes that the parents wanted, they can just get rid of them. That's how it works in America. So, you want to know why these people are going and shooting up buildings? These people that are mentally ill or mentally disabled, they can't even go to the very people that you would think, they always say, your family's the one that, when it gets really bad, you should be able to pick up a phone and somebody should be able from your family to come help you. Well, when you're mentally ill, you're mentally disabled, you don't get the luxury of having a family. You don't get that in the United States. You just don't have one, right? You could try to get a family, but they'll tell you that you're not the pair of shoes that they wanted, and they'll disown you the last semester of your senior year of high school. And they'll make it to where it's impossible for them to help you because they'll legally emancipate you like my adopted parents did. So not only did they not want to, their public image was so important to them that they not only didn't want to give me mental health that I needed, they sent me away and made it impossible for them to help me get mental health. That's how mental illness is treated between children and parents in the United States. So, getting everything I'm going to talk about after this, I'm doing all this as an insane person by myself. So just remember that. The rest of this recording of the things I'm going to explain, I'm doing all this as an insane person, as a mentally disabled person, by myself. Because that's how mental illness is treated in the United States. You're literally abandoned, and you're expected to somehow, with your not working correctly brain, supposed to just magically make this stuff happen on your own, and somehow people are surprised and upset that these people are shooting at Bill. And I'm saying that again, I've never owned a gun, I've never bought a gun, I don't even know how that process works if I wanted to do it, and I don't. And I'm saying that. So, living in California, trying to get insurance in California. So, if you don't live in the United States, if you're severely low income, whether you're disabled or not, if you're severely low income, everyone qualifies for Medicaid. And Medicaid is a health insurance program that's in all 50 states. If you are disabled, some states will let low-income people have Medicaid and Medicare, but other states, like where I live in Alaska, I only got Medicare after I officially became disabled. So this whole time I only had Alaska Medicaid. In California, they have their own Medicaid. It's called Medi-Cal. And because I haven't lived there in so long, and I don't think I ever got Medicare. I don't honestly know how that works in California. I just know Medicaid. And this is me, and it's frustrating because they tell you, I've been told I'm trying to do all the right things, and it still hasn't given me what I need. And it's frustrating because you're mentally ill and you're trying to keep yourself as stable as possible, and the systems that are in place in this country just don't want you to be alive. And it's frustrating. So getting Medicaid in California is a multi-month process, and if anybody questions whether getting Medicaid is a multi-month process, I implore anyone right now. I want anybody right now to just try to look up the Los Angeles Public Assistance Building and call them. You know what? Don't even try to talk to a person. Just leave a voicemail and see how long it takes you to get a phone call back. So it took months just to get the Medicaid I needed to see a therapist, and then it took months it took about 2 months after that to get a therapist. And thankfully I was already seeing a general practitioner at the Children's Hospital in Los Angeles. But it still took a few months to see a therapist in the same building, is what I'm trying to say. And even going to every appointment, every week, and all this, there are so many people in Los Angeles that if you're on Medicaid, the therapist you're going to sit in front of has at least 500 patients. And there is no way they can remember who you are, your trauma, what you've been through. So these appointments are not working through anything. Like you wait this whole time to get these appointments to sit down and talk to somebody, and then you finally sit down to talk to somebody, but they're so overloaded, they're so overworked, that every appointment is starting from square one again. You can't work through anything, because you start from the beginning, and the next appointment, they've seen so many people that they forget. You have to redo everything all over again. So, even when you're trying to do the right thing, you could still not get any help going to a weekly appointment with a therapist, because they could be so overworked and have so many other patients that they literally can't remember anything about you. They can't help you. They're so overworked they can't help you, is what I'm trying to explain. So I came up to Alaska. I didn't want to live in Los Angeles anymore because I didn't want to be homeless. I lived there for 2.5 years and had a job the majority of that time and never had the credit I needed to get an apartment. So I've lived in Alaska for 8 years, and it took me 2 years to get mental health care in Alaska. And if I was somebody that needed a medication to not hurt myself or other people, if I needed like a therapist every week, if I needed somebody to check on me to make sure I didn't cause damage, 2 years, I would have died. That's why I'm saying that the mental health that exists right now is killing people. It's killing people because the crazy people that haven't ever been helped, whether they've been trying or not, are shooting up buildings. And the people that are trying and deciding not to shoot up a building are dying because they're waiting so long to get out. It took 2 years because the first year and a half was just trying to close down the Medicaid case I had in California and open a Medicaid case in Alaska. Because, and I have to explain this to people that don't know anything about Medicaid and Medicare, or don't know anything about the United States healthcare system. Medicaid exists in all 50 states, but I can't get an appointment in Alaska. I can't see a therapist in Alaska. I can't get a medication or get a medication refilled in Alaska because California Medicaid isn't going to cover anything in Alaska. Even though California and Alaska both have Medicaid, they both exist, because they're different states, they're not going to talk to each other. They're not going to work with each other. So the year and a half, it took me a year and a half just to close down, to call and call and call to get the Medicaid case closed down. And I also have to explain this. I could close down the Medicaid case in California and never be able to get health care in Alaska ever, because Alaska Medicaid needed proof that I closed down the Medicaid case in California. So not only did I have to call for months and months till somebody finally answered and told me that they closed my case, I had to get them to mail me the proof that they closed my case so I could take it to Alaska Medicaid, the state building in Alaska, and they were like, oh, okay, well, we'll finally give you health care now, sure. It's like, because the state buildings, they're both state buildings. They both have Medicaid, but they refuse to talk to each other. And I couldn't get a referral from California to Alaska. So not only did I have to go through a whole multi-month process just to get one insurance closed down, which is the same Medicaid, with this Medicaid closed down in one state to open Medicaid in another state, I also had to, on my own, find a therapist, find a doctor who would see me, which was on its own also a multi-month process. Um, and I'm going to remind everybody, as a mentally ill, mentally disabled person, I'm doing all of this myself. My adopted parents made it very clear they don't care about my life or other people's lives. They made it impossible for them to help them. By emancipating me, they made it impossible for themselves to help me. Even if they wanted to do that, they can't. um, I'm by myself. I just came up to life. I don't know anybody. Nothing's in place to help mentally ill people uh, before they actually get anything. They just have to accept being destitute and symptomatic until they get something. And in a country where the only person that's keeping me from buying a gun is my own insane, mentally disabled brain, I'm surprised people are surprised that there are as many mass shootings as there are in this country. I'm surprised people are surprised that people are shooting up buildings in the first place. Because the system is set up in this country to where there are mentally ill people and mentally disabled people that think that that is genuinely the only way they can get out of whatever situation they're in or fix whatever problem they're in. And you might be saying, well, there's only two outcomes to shooting up a building in the United States, and that's dying. You either kill yourself or a cop kills you, or you go to prison. And if you go to prison, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about food. You don't have to worry about shelter. You only have to worry about your safety. So, I don't, it sounds bad because it is. It sounds terrible because it is. But I'm just an insane man that's trying to make appointments and see doctors in this broken, near non-existent system. I have to explain this because if you tell people that you genuinely think are going to go shoot up a building to just focus on mental health, you're basically telling them to shoot up a building. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. As somebody that's insane, somebody that's disabled and never owned a gun, that's never bought a gun, I need to make this recording to explain this to people, that the current system that's in place is only giving people one option. And I'm saying that as somebody that's never owned a gun. I'm saying that as somebody that's never bought a gun. So, I need to bring this up as well. I finally got Alaska Medicaid. There, in Fairbanks, where I live, there are only 2 places in the entire town that take Alaska Medicaid insurance for mental health care. I'm mostly going to talk about the one because the second one hasn't been up here as long, and if you go to the 4th floor in Fairbanks, the only place that they refer you out to is the Alaska Behavioral Health Center. So I'm mostly going to talk about my experience with the Alaska Behavioral Health Center because they see the most people, they have the most funding, they've been around the longest, and still, if you go to the 4th floor of the hospital, that's the only place they refer you out. So the Alaska Behavioral Health Center is not conducive to keeping people alive at all. And I'm going to explain my experiences so hopefully people understand why I'm saying the things I'm saying about the Alaska Behavioral Health Center. Because if it's happening where I live, I know there are other communities, small communities, rural towns, that have the same, if not more, problems. And if you want to say it's a mental health issue, then you need to really fix the current mental health that's in place. Because if you don't, more people are going to die. And I'm saying that as an insane person that's never bought a gun. I'm saying that as an insane person that's never owned a gun. Okay? When you call the Alaska Behavioral Health Center and set up an appointment, and I have to remind everybody, it's already been a year and a half. I've just tried to get the insurance I needed to see these people. Haven't seen a therapist, haven't seen a psychologist, haven't been given a medication, haven't taken a medication. Year and a half. Waited just to get the insurance I need to see a therapist. So, the Alaska Behavioral Health Center, when you call them, they tell you that there's a 6-month wait list to get an appointment. That 6-month wait list is not to see a therapist. That 6-month wait list is not to see a doctor. That 6-month wait list is not to take a medication. That 6-month wait list is for an intake appointment. And that intake appointment is to sit in front of somebody with a clipboard and a pencil from the receptionist desk who's going to ask you a bunch of questions that literally have nothing to do with who you are as a person or your life. And after they fill out all that paperwork, they're going to tell you, well, somebody should call you. Not somebody will call you, somebody should call you. So if you're somebody, and I have to keep reminding people, if you're a mentally ill person that needs to rely on a medication, like you take Depakote, you take Abilify, you take Propranolol, you take lithium, like really hard stuff way not even in the same stadium as Tylenol. I mean, we're talking the difference between like a light rain and a thunderstorm. One's a light anti-inflammatory for pain, and the other one literally alters your brain chemistry. So if you're one of these people that needs to rely on a medication to not cause harm, I don't know how waiting, if you can't wait 2 years, is what I'm trying to explain. You're asking these people to do what happened to Uvalde. You want them to wait 2 years before they finally sit down in front of a therapist, before they finally get a medication, before they finally even attempt to work through anything. 2 years to do that? You want people to die. And as an insane, I'm saying as an insane person that's never bought a gun, never owned a gun. I don't want to shoot anybody up. I don't even know how I would buy a gun. I don't even know how that process works. And I'm saying, So I wait 6 months to help somebody fill out a clipboard, and then 2 months later, I finally get a phone call to schedule an appointment with a therapist. So that's why I'm saying it took me 8, and I'm frustrated because I'm trying to do the right thing, even with my mental illnesses. So bad I can't even make a resume. I can't even do the Ticket to Work program with SSA, or I'll get sent to the workforce. My mental illnesses are so bad. Like I'm doing this recording because I'm doing okay right now, and it's important. But I didn't list off Depakote, Abilify, Propranolol, lithium because they sound nice. I've actually been prescribed those medications to give you an idea of the mental illnesses I have. Okay, so you set these places up to where people that you think, if you're generally concerned about their ability to stay safe and be safe around other people, I don't know how that's not letting them die. I don't know how you're not telling them that they only have one option if something happens to them. And I'm saying that as an insane person. I've never bought a gun. I've never owned a gun. So I have to explain this too. I had a job at the time, and this is before I officially became disabled. I wait all this time, I do all this work, I do all this calling, all this with my own, not functioning correctly brain, on my own, trying to get this all together. And I can't make an appointment with these people. And the reason I can't make an appointment with these people is because my job at the time was from 8 in the morning until 4 p.m. And their business hours were from 8 in the morning to 4:30 p.m. So I go through this whole multi-month process only to be told, well, we can't make an appointment with you because your work schedule doesn't fit. And I talk to my boss, he can't move me around. So they just don't give me health care. Because I want to have a job and pay and have housing and feed myself, I can't get mental health care. That's what the Alaska Behavioral Health Center told me. And their attendance policies don't keep people alive either. Because they told me that rescheduling is the same thing as canceling to them. And if you cancel or reschedule 3 times in a row, you're not seen as a patient there anymore, which means you don't get a therapist anymore, you don't get medications, you can't get them refilled, you don't have a case manager anymore. The only thing you have to rely on is a 24-hour crisis line that you can talk at. But they've only got like 1 or 2 crisis people. So if you need to talk to somebody but 2 other people are in crisis, I don't know what you're supposed to do. I don't know what you're doing. But, so if you miss 3 appointments or you reschedule, so like, if you have to meet with a disability representative and you can't come in that day, you got to reschedule. That's the same as canceling. If you're sick and vomiting and you're contagious and you need to reschedule, that's the same as canceling. If you're doing okay and you just want to do like a phone check-in with your therapist because your boss asks you to work more and you want extra money, so you're not like literally on the verge of being homeless, that's the same as canceling. And like I said, if you get 3 of them, then you're no longer seen as a patient anymore, and you have to go through the same nearly year-long process to get back with that same therapist again. So, I don't know how people are supposed to stay alive if they're mentally ill in the United States. I don't know how mentally disabled people are supposed to stay alive when they live in Alaska, when they live in Fairbanks, because that's the current mental health system, if you even want to call it a system, that's in place here. My job finally moved my schedule around. It took a while, but thankfully it did, and then when it did, I went through the nearly a year process again to see Alaska Behavioral Health Center. And seeing them, I'm trying to remember what happened first. I had an abusive ex-girlfriend, and she was a bigger girl, but you know, I I was broke, but it was because I spent most all my money on her. Like I helped her pay her student loan debt a couple times. I helped her pay her car insurance a couple times. She was diagnosed with illness, and I helped her pay for her medications. It wasn't just one medication, multiple medications, and I helped her pay for those when she couldn't afford them. And then like you're supposed to, take her out to dinner, take her out to the movies. It's her birthday, you buy her stuff for Christmas and Valentine's Day. Just the stuff you're supposed to do when you're a boyfriend. Just the stuff you're supposed to do. And but we would get in arguments, and so I'm the type of person, if I get mad, I just need to leave. I just need to go on a walk or go outside or just for a little bit, and I don't care if you want to talk to me for a week after we have an argument. I just need that initial time to just calm down so I can talk to you for a week if you want me to. And my ex-girlfriend had these really bad abandonment issues, so she just flat out wouldn't let me calm down and would actually lay on top of me to keep me from leaving. And I'm not going to lay my hand on a woman, so I just laid there, but she's heavy and it was hard to breathe, and I started having panic attacks when she did that. So my case manager at Alaska Behavioral Health at the time, her name was Laquana, she talked to my ex-girlfriend and told her multiple times not to lay on top of me. And I got a case manager at a place called Access Alaska in town, and her name was Tammy Kulash. And it got to the point where I was actually I made an appointment with Tammy Kulash to put a restraining order on my ex-girlfriend. But Tammy Kulash had to reschedule, and my ex-girlfriend put a restraining order on me in that time. Well, before that, one of the times, what led to me making an appointment to put a restraining order on my ex-girlfriend was she laid on me one time, and I had a nervous breakdown. And one of the nervous breakdowns I had was so bad that one of my neighbors called the police, and the police showed up, and my ex-girlfriend said I had a nervous breakdown, I need to go to the hospital. I said I had a nervous breakdown, I needed to go to the hospital. And the police arrested me and charged me with disorderly conduct instead. So, the only criminal record I have, the only criminal charge I have on my record is literally because I had a nervous breakdown because I was getting abused by an ex-girlfriend. And so, when you have a nervous breakdown, you'll get arrested. When you have a nervous breakdown, you get a restraining order put on you. When you have a nervous breakdown, it's punished. That's how mental health care is treated in this country. That's how, when you're in an abusive relationship, but you're a guy, you're still treated as an abuser, even though you were the victim in that case. They tried to say that I locked my ex-girlfriend in the bathroom, even though it locks from the inside, and she answered the door when the police showed up, and so I don't know, but I'm explaining this because the behavioral health center wouldn't testify on my behalf in court. They talked to my ex-girlfriend, but when it actually came time to defend me in the courtroom, they wouldn't do it. So that ties into, and I have to explain this too. I can't sue the state of Alaska, right? And what I'm about to say is going to sound terrible, because it is terrible. And I'm going to say this again and again. I don't own a gun. I've never owned a gun. I've never bought a gun. The only option I have to get justice for what happened to me is to either shoot up the courthouse or bomb the courthouse. Because, and I'm going to bring up this other thing that happened. My biological sister messaged me on Facebook and wanted me to get back in contact with my biological mom. I have a lot of problems with my biological mother. I genuinely don't want anything to do with her unless somebody is going to tell me that she's dead. That's the only news I want to hear about my birth mom. But my biological sister wanted me to talk to her, but what was confusing to me was she asked me to talk to her. There's only one way I can find out, like, kind of any information about my biological mom, and that source, before, used to only have one date, and that was her birthday, 1959. Well, now, when I look at that source, the date is 1959 to 2018. So I genuinely don't know if my biological mom is dead or not. And because of my biological mother, it's very hard for her to just get on Facebook and confirm that. So I called a private investigator, and I just explained my situation. Like, hey, my biological sister wants me to talk to my biological mom, but I genuinely don't know if she's alive or not. I don't want to contact her at all. I just want somebody to figure out and tell me if she's alive or not, so I know how to respond to my biological sister. And this really nice lady called me back and was like, yeah, we totally could do that, but I had mentioned in the voicemail I left that I had been on a fixed income. And she was like, my concern is that you're on a fixed income because our rate for an hour was like over $1,100. I don't want, I want to make this clear. I'm very appreciative for the amount of money I get. I'm very grateful. I'm very thankful for the amount of money I get. I had a job since 14, 15 and a half years old, and the Social Security Administration was able to track that, thank goodness. So I qualify for disability and SSI. Even though I get SSA, because they tell me even though I got both of them, they're only giving me one, but they never give me a good reason why they're only giving me one. So I don't even understand the benefit I get. Is what I'm trying to explain. Because nobody's helped me understand it. So I get $1,084 a month in SSA. There's a Alaska-specific program that I'm in that brings the number up to about $1,100. But I bring up that number because I have to be homeless and not eat for a whole month for an hour of that private investigator's time. And it was over $1,100, so I still would owe him money. And if that's for 1 hour of a private investigator's time, then a cheap lawyer is probably more than that. So I can't pay out of pocket to legally fight what happened to me, but because of how SSI and disabilities rules work, when you're on disability and you're on SSI, you can't make a GoFundMe. You can't make a fundraiser. You can't fundraise. So not only can I not legally pay to fight what happened to me, I also can't legally ask for help. That's why I'm saying that there are mentally ill and mentally disabled people in this country who genuinely believe there's only one option that exists for them to get justice for what happened to them in this country. And I'm saying that as somebody that tried to do the right thing. I'm saying that as an insane person that's never bought a gun. I'm saying that as an insane person that's never owned a gun, doesn't even know how to buy one. And the country I'm living in is telling me through its actions, because actions speak louder than words. There's only one option I have to fight and give myself justice and give myself right the wrongs that were done. There's only one option for that, and I don't want to do that option, right? So I don't know what mentally ill people are supposed to do in this country. I don't know what mentally disabled people are supposed to do in this country if that's the only option they're given to fight for themselves in this country. Because they literally can't do it legally. They can't pay because they don't get enough to pay legally, and they can't ask for help legally. They can't legally ask for help in this country. So after this happened, I applied for disability the first time. I didn't get it the first time, but I got it the second time. The first time, I was told I should try to get unemployment, so I did. Unemployment sent me this medical record form because my applying for disability to do with a mental illness, they said. And I was seeing, this happened in October, I know, because I had just seen my therapist, and I had an appointment card with her for the 29th of October. So I have this medical record form that my therapist needs to fill out. And unemployment, because they needed my doctor to fill out this paper to prove that I was mentally ill, basically, they not only didn't give me unemployment until that paper was signed, but they also put my food stamps on hold, and they put my Medicaid on hold. So I couldn't buy groceries, and I couldn't take medication or see a doctor. So that's how mental health is treated. Like, a paper getting signed is so important that the organizations that are in place are going to put your life in jeopardy and make it impossible. Like if I got hit by a car during that time, or if I need to rely on a medication, the unemployment office and the Alaska Behavioral Health Center would have killed me. I would have died because they took away my ability to get health care, and they took away my ability to, because I didn't have unemployment, didn't have any income, I couldn't pay rent, couldn't pay phone bill, to even answer a doctor if they called me. You know? So that's what I'm saying when I say that these organizations that are in place are teaching people that are mentally ill and disabled through actions that there's only one option they have to fight for themselves and to defend themselves. And I'm surprised that people are surprised that mentally ill and disabled people are taking that option. I called the Alaska Behavioral Health Center and was like, hey, I got this paper my doctor needs to sign, blah, blah, blah. And I was going to email it, take a picture and email it, or walk over and give it to them to sign. But the lady called me back and was like, yeah, she's not going to sign it because you're not a patient here anymore. And I just remember it was like, I thought it was a miscommunication because I had literally just seen this woman and she didn't say that I wasn't a patient anymore. I had an appointment with her at the beginning of the month, and then I was going to see her on the 20th. I had an appointment card with her. So I was like, well, I'm going to defend myself, and I put the paper in a book bag and walked to the Alaska Behavioral Health Center. But the Alaska Behavioral Health Center called the police on me, and the police told me that they weren't going to fill out that paper, and that I wasn't allowed to go to the Alaska Behavioral Health Center because me saying I'm going to defend myself is a threat. That's literally what the police told me. And I even showed the one of the cops my appointment card, but the police only wanted, and it hurts to say this because there was a time when I actually wanted to be a police officer, but it's so far from the education I got all those years ago that it hurts, but I feel comfortable enough to say this because the current police are so different from what I learned as a kid. The cops only want to put you in a cage or kill you. And if they can't put you in a cage or kill you, they don't care about you. So I showed the cop the point, didn't care. Doesn't care about my life. Just wants to know if they can kill me or put me in a cage. So I called unemployment and explained my situation to them. And the unemployment office was like, well, we'll set you up an appointment with somebody who will fill that out. And I was like, okay. So I go to this appointment, and the lady they set me up an appointment with isn't even qualified to fill out this paper. They wanted an MD to fill out the paper, and she was like an LPN, you know? I was like, finally, after all of that, I literally said to myself, I was like, if you're going to put me in a cage and turn me into a mass shooter because I want to feed myself and pay rent, then do it. I literally said that to myself, and I filled out that medical record card myself. And you know what? I got unemployment immediately. I got like $600 in unemployment because the Alaska Behavioral Health Center jeopardized my life for so long that I got back pay for months of them telling me they don't care about my life, and I bring that up because I said I was going to defend myself. I put a piece of paper in my book bag and walked in the rain to try to figure out why a therapist I had and had been seeing didn't want to do her job. And having a piece of paper and defending yourself, the police are going to tell you as an insane disabled person that defending yourself peacefully is a threat. You're threatening for trying to defend yourself peacefully. Walking to a building with a piece of paper is a threat. The police are literally going to tell you Walking into a building with a piece of paper is a threat. So you want to know why these people are shooting up buildings. You want to know why these disabled, mentally ill people are shooting places up. It's because cops are telling them when they're trying to walk into a building with a paper because of a miscommunication that they're a threat. That doing it peacefully is the threatening thing to do. They're a threat for defending themselves, right? I said I was going to defend myself. Defending myself is a threat when you're mentally ill in the United States, and the police will literally tell you that to your face. I'm going to bring this up, and it's important because I'm going to say something that's going to be very terrible, but I have to explain this before I say this thing that's going to sound really terrible. I haven't brought up any transgender stuff in this recording. If I just talked about the transgender stuff in this recording, it'd be a whole other hour long. The issues I have with being transgender and mentally ill in Alaska and in the United States. But I'm going to talk about this one thing. I have all kinds of friends. I have friends who may not want to hear about it all the time. Some friends who don't care. I'm literally, my Facebook friends are literally like people with pictures in front of a tractor and drag queens. It's such a mix. So, but to make everyone happy, I have to talk about this because I can't not talk about it. So, I tried to get top surgery, and I did end up getting top surgery, but my case manager and therapist, and I have to reiterate this too. So, they said the Alaska Behavioral Health Center. I have to actually bring this up before I go into the transgender thing. Told the police I wasn't a patient there anymore. Told the police I wasn't allowed on the property anymore. So, time goes by and I go to this other organization called ND Systems that's really great. But because they're a small organization, because they don't have the funding, even though they're better than the Alaska Behavioral Health Center, there are times when they can't take Medicaid patients and times when they can. So they couldn't see me for about a year. So I couldn't get any mental health care for about a year. And during that time, I tried to go to the Alaska Behavioral Health Center. And the Alaska Behavioral Health Center did not apologize to me. Right. They told me that they didn't apologize to me for what happened. It was like I was being screamed at by two parents for being mentally ill and wanting them to do their job and fill out a paper saying they were my doctor because they were. So, but they were like, you know, you threatened us by asking to have a paper filled out so you could not starve to death and be homeless. So we're going to remember that, and we're going to remind you of that every day that you get services from us. But you have to treat us with respect and not, threaten us by asking us to fill out paperwork ever again, basically, is what they said. That I could see them again. So I was like, yep, okay, just pretend that you never take advantage of me, and that's great. And so I think it was during this time that I was seeing a therapist, and therapist I had wanted me, I was doing good. They told me at one appointment I was doing great. I was like 25% better than I had been doing before. And literally the very next appointment I had with that person, they started telling me about getting a guardian. So I didn't know anything about a guardian at the time, and they weren't honest with me about what a guardian was. They told me that a guardian was somebody who was going to help me fill out paperwork. So, like, if I had some kind of paperwork from the Social Security Administration I had to fill out, or something from the state building I had to fill out, they were going to help me do that. So I was like, I've been doing that okay for a while. I don't think I need that, but they really kept pushing it and pushing it. And finally they just told me that I had a court date. So I was like, okay. So I don't know how it is in other states, but in Alaska, there's a court website you can go on and actually see when your court date is so you can get there. And in the courthouse, there's like a really long, it looks like a long TV, but it's a electric screen. It's got all the cases that are in the courthouse that day, so you can find what your room is and what time it is and all that stuff, so you get to the right place at the right time. So the Alaska Behavioral Health Center gave me a court date. I go to the courthouse on the court date, and I'm looking at this screen, and I can't find my name. I can't find my name. So finally, I go to the clerk's office in the courthouse, and I'm like, hey, I had a guardianship hearing today, but I don't see my name anywhere. Could you help me? And this lady's like, well, I don't have any information, but I have your representative's name. So what I didn't know until that lady told me is that there was actually a lawyer who was going to represent me on my behalf, who I only found out about just then. So the lawyer, I called the lawyer, and I talked to him like, hey, I'm at the courthouse. I couldn't find my name on the screen anywhere. And he's like, yeah, we already had it. Your case is dismissed. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, hold on a second. What happened was the Alaska Behavioral Health Center gave me a court date. And the court website had the court date that the Alaska Behavioral Health Center gave me. Well, the courthouse changed the date for whatever reason. But the Alaska Behavioral Health Center didn't tell me that for my own guardianship hearing. And like, I didn't get in trouble for it because it was genuinely, it wasn't me purposefully not showing up to court. I was given the wrong information. So I didn't get in any trouble for that, thank goodness. But the representative I had basically told me, yeah, the case was dismissed because, and then he explained to me what a guardian is. Okay, so a guardian is somebody that handles everything. They're like a parent without being an actual parent, pretty much. They pay all your bills for you. You don't get any control of your money. They control your money. They pay all your bills for you. They handle all your appointments for you. They fill out all your paperwork for you. Anything that you would do on your own, that guardian does for you. That's what a guardian does. So it's way more than just filling out paperwork, is what I'm trying to say. They are literally like, take care of you without being a live-in aid, basically. But those people need to get paid. So the representative is explaining all this to me. The Alaska Behavioral Health Center tried to give me a guardian without honestly explaining to me what a guardian even is. The representative had to explain to me what a guardian was. And he said, I pushed for your dismissal because you only get $600 a paycheck. That guardian's going to take $200 for his fees. You're going to be destitute. He can't work with that amount of money. No guardian in town is going to work with that small amount of money. They just wanted to take advantage of you. So I'm not saying, these aren't my words. This isn't my opinion. A lawyer who was representing me literally told me that the Alaska Behavioral Health Center lied to me and tried to take advantage of me. And that's where the hospital is referring people to when they get out of the fourth floor. And you want to know why 2 stabbings happened at Alaska Behavioral Health Center's property? You want to know why people are shooting up buildings? You want to know why disabled and mentally ill people are, causing the harm they're causing? It's because the people that they're specifically told to ask for help from are lying to them and taking advantage of them. And I'm not saying that because I want to. I'm saying that because a lawyer who represented me literally told me. Okay? And I'm a mentally ill person that's never owned a gun. I'm a mentally ill person that's never bought a gun. And this is the experience I've had trying to do the right thing, trying to see these doctors, trying to go to these appointments, trying to get mental health care. This is the experience I've had. And I've never owned a gun. And I've never bought a gun. I can't even imagine what insane people are feeling like right now that actually have guns, that actually own guns. So now that I've talked about that, I have to go into the next thing, is top surgery. My case manager and therapist didn't know how to help me get top surgery, so they told me to go on Facebook groups and ask for help getting top surgery. So I did. Went on these Facebook groups and asked for help, and this was before the exclusion in Alaska Medicaid got lifted. So I got my top surgery covered out of medical necessity because my experience with healthcare in general has been so bad. Whether it was mental health care or physical health care, it's been so poor that when I found out there was an exclusion for Medicaid and I tried talking to surgeons and they just were like, well, Medicaid's not going to cover it, so I'm not going to help you, I tried to give myself surgery. I bought the equipment and practiced doing sutures on pieces of chicken and packages of hamburger, and I practiced sutures on myself, and I literally tried to give myself top surgery. That's why it was covered out of medical necessity. Okay, so however you feel, you want to scream about me burning in hell on Wednesday evening, Saturday and Sunday morning, great. If that's what makes you happy, that's what gets you through your day, burn a picture of me in effigy for all I care. If that's what keeps you happy, if that's what gets you through your day, then you do it. Do it 100 times. I don't care. But I have to explain the horrible process of getting health care in America for somebody that's genuinely mentally ill, for somebody that's genuinely got a mental disability. And I'm somebody that's disabled, who's mentally ill, and has never owned a gun, who has never bought a gun. I don't even know how to try to buy a gun. I made a post about, and I have to explain this too. So my adopted brother, I have 2 adopted brothers. One's older, one's younger. The younger one, I don't know why. Saddam was executed, and he was like really into Saddam being executed. So like he spent hours on the computer one day trying to find me the video of him getting executed. And then, according to my adopted brother, Saddam loved Doritos chips. So after Saddam got executed, for like at least 2 months after he got executed, every time my adopted brother would eat a bag of Doritos, he said he was gonna Saddam a bag of Doritos. Nobody thought he was Saddam. Nobody thought he was a part of the Taliban. I don't know why he said he'd Saddam a bag of Doritos. That's just what he said. I don't know. But I'm just an insane guy. I'm trying to do doctor's appointments. I'm trying to take medication. I'm trying to do the things that these doctors want me to do. And I can only keep myself alive, and I can only keep myself together to keep myself and other people alive. That's what I can do. I'm not going to get mad about mass shooting and become a statistic, okay? So I'm going to joke, because I'd rather joke about something than get upset and become a statistic. Especially if I live in a country where they are really making it look like there's only one option for me to try to get justice and help for anything that's happened to me in my life. So, if I stub my toe, I'll say Sandy Hook. If I'm working on my car and I drop the drain bolt in the oil pan in the drain reservoir, I'll say Sandy Hook. If I almost hit a fox on the road, I'll yell Sandy Hook. I don't own a gun. I don't have a gun. I've seen schools in town. I don't even know where to park at a school. I'm not gonna shoot a place up, okay? But I'd rather joke than get upset and become a statistic in a country that wants me to be a statistic. So, I made a Facebook post in one of these trans groups, something to the effect of healthcare Sandy Hook, or trying to get top surgery Sandy Hook. But I know I use Sandy Hook, talking about how frustrating healthcare is. I never said, like, I'm going to specifically carry out this action. I just said the word Sandy Hook. So, I can't remember, somebody from the group sent a post I made to the Alaska Behavioral Health Center. I'm about to say something that sounds terrible, because it is terrible. But I'm going to say it because it's true, because that's what's happened. I used the word Sandy Hook, and some person in the group got upset by it and sent it to Alaska Behavioral Health Center. The Alaska Behavioral Health Center banned me permanently from going to their office, from getting medication, from seeing a therapist, seeing a doctor, seeing a case manager. I can't see them anymore for anything. The Alaska Behavioral Health Center taught me to be a mass shooter. And I'm saying that as an insane person that's never bought a gun. I'm saying as the same person that's never owned a gun. The Alaska Behavioral Health Center saw English they didn't like and were genuinely concerned that I might somehow get a gun from somewhere, even though I've never owned one before, and shoot somebody up. They couldn't tell me who they thought I was going to shoot up, because I never said I was going to do that. I literally just used English they didn't like. They were genuinely concerned I was going to shoot up a building. Instead of helping me to not shoot up a building, they didn't even send me to the 4th floor. I didn't even get sent to the 4th floor for this. Just to give you an idea of how little they actually care about people's lives in Fairbanks, okay? They were legitimately concerned I was going to shoot up a building, even though I've never bought a gun, I've never owned a gun. Instead of helping me to not be a mass shooter, they told me through their actions that they not only want me to be a mass shooter, they're going to make it impossible for me to get help to not be a mass shooter, because they ban me from it. If I'm banned, you can't help me. So if I'm in crisis, you can't do anything for me. So I don't know how you're not telling me with your action that you don't want me to shoot up a building. You thought I was going to shoot up a building. Instead of sending me to the 4th floor, instead of talking to me and making sure I didn't even have a gun, I didn't own a gun, I didn't try to buy a gun, instead of doing any investigating with any of the gun stores in town or anything like that, you were like, we think you might shoot up a building, but instead of helping you to not shoot up a building, we're going to make it impossible for you to not be a mass shooter, and we're going to ban you. So even if you wanted help to not be a mass shooter, that's impossible now, because you can't go on the property. This is what the Alaska Behavioral Health Center is teaching disabled people. This is what the Alaska Behavioral Health Center is teaching mentally ill people. And I'm saying that as an insane person that's never owned a gun, I'm saying that as an insane person that's never bought a gun. I'm saying that as an insane person that doesn't even know how you would buy a gun. And that's what the Alaska Behavior Center taught me. And if they taught me that, I know they taught other people that are sicker than me and have more challenges than me because they've gotten in trouble twice now because their inability to keep people safe and alive caused 2 stabbings to happen on the 2 other properties. That's mental health care in America. That's what mental health care is like. And I'm frustrated because I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to get help. And these people are telling me that they don't even, that I not only can't get help, they're going to make it impossible for me to get help. I don't know how you're not teaching people to shoot up a building. How are you not teaching disabled people to not shoot up a building? How are you not teaching mentally ill people to not shoot up a building when that's how you're treating them? I'm going to bring up this other example. Before the Sandy Hook comment, I got a job, and this was right before I got my disability. I got a job at Walmart, and I just wanted to see. I was working with the disability rep. This was my second time trying to get disability, and I was like, I just want to see if I can get a job with no accommodation, nothing at all, and just see how long I could last there. And I just want to see if I can do it, and if I can, how long I can last. I got fired after 3 months. But I have to bring up my time at Walmart because there's an incident that happened at Walmart that reinforces that what I said earlier, the Alaska Behavioral Health Center taught me to be a mass shooter. And I'm never not going to say that they taught me to be a mass shooter because they did. And this is the solidifying experience that happened as well. So if you're not a patient with Alaska Behavioral Health, like I said, there's a 24/7 crisis line that you can call, even though there's only 1 or 2 people on it at a given time. You can call, and they won't help you, but you can talk to them. So I had kept it together till my break, and then there's this family bathroom in the back of Walmart here in town, and I was in that bathroom having a nervous breakdown. So I'm in the middle of a nervous breakdown in this bathroom. I'm talking to the crisis person. His name's Bob. He wears this Catholic cross thing as a tie on his shirt sometimes. So I'm having a nervous breakdown with him, and I'm talking to him, and I can't finish my day. My nervous breakdown is not going to end at the end of my break, and I needed somebody to come in and talk to my boss and take me out of work. That's what I needed. And I'm in the middle of having this nervous breakdown, and Bob literally told me, I'll never forget this, he literally told me, I'm not going to help you unless you say you're going to shoot up Walmart. He told, in the middle of a nervous breakdown, I'm telling him I need somebody to come help me. I need somebody to talk to my boss, and I need somebody to come take me and bring me home or take me to the hospital or something. Because I can't finish the day. I'm talking clear now because I'm okay right now. But I don't cry easy. After I started my transition, I haven't been able to cry very easy at all. I was sobbing on the phone with this guy. I was having a real full-on episode with my brain. And I'm at my most vulnerable point. Bob told me, I'm not going to help you unless you say this thing. And I hear Bob say, you're not going to get help unless you say this thing. So I'm well, I need help. If all I have to do is say this thing, then I'll say it. So I was sure, I'm going to shoot up Walmart, whatever. I just need help. So he didn't help me. He actually hung up on me. And then I had to call a friend of mine to come take me out of work. But Walmart has their own whole process to call off from work. They don't accept doctor's notes. So I gave the manager my doctor's note, and she was like, "Yeah, you're fired. We don't accept this." So that was that's how my time at Walmart went. But the Alaska Behavioral Health Center teaches people to be a mass shooter. And I'm never going to stop saying that, because I was in the middle of having a nervous breakdown at work, and Bob told me he wasn't going to help me unless I said I was going to shoot up a building. How do you want people to just focus on mental health when the mental health people that are literally relying on is telling them they have to say they're going to shoot up a building or they're not going to get help? Bob needs to explain to me how he's not teaching me to be a mass shooter by making me say, I'm going to shoot up Walmart. Bob, how are you not teaching me to be a mass shooter when I'm in the middle of a nervous breakdown at work and you literally tell me I'm not going to help you unless you say you're going to shoot up Walmart? How are you not teaching me to be a mass shooter, Bob? Tell me. Explain that to me. If you're telling me I'm not going to help you unless you say you're going to shoot up a building, how are you not teaching me to be a mass shooter, Bob? How can you wear that cross as a tie on your shirt every day when you're teaching mentally ill and disabled people to be a mass shooter? Is that what a good Christian would do? I don't know. I'm not a Christian. I hope not. I know. And I'm saying that as somebody that's never owned a gun, as somebody that's never bought a gun. If that happened to me, there are people sicker than I am. There are people that have more challenges than I do. There are people that can't drive. There are people that somebody needs to check up on them every week, not just once a week or once every 2 weeks. And Bob's telling them they're not going to get help unless they say they're going to shoot up a building. If you're insane and you're mentally ill, and somebody says you're not going to get help unless you say you're going to shoot up a building, I don't know how your next thought isn't, well, if I say I'm going to shoot up a building, why don't I just do it? Especially if that's the only option I have, because I can't afford a lawyer, and I can't ask for help to pay for a lawyer. It sounds terrible because it is. It sounds terrible because it is. But that's how mental health works in America. That's how mental illness is treated in America. As a mentally ill person, I have to make this recording because you saying it's just a mental health issue is going to make more people die. It's going to make more kids die. And I'm trying to do the right thing. And I'm frustrated. And I'm not going to buy a gun. And I'm not going to shoot up a building. But the organizations that are in place in this country are literally telling me I have to say those things and literally telling me that I have to do those things because that's the only way my problems are going to get solved. Even though I don't want to do it. There's another thing that I have to bring up. Right before I became disabled officially, I was sexually assaulted at my old job. My supervisor was the person that did it. And I did everything I was supposed to do. I reported it right away. I tried to do a SART exam as soon as I could. I went through all the organization, victim compensation, all that stuff. I fear for my life. I was able to defend myself, but I fear for my life. So the assault happened in the locker room, and the supervisor asked for my keys. And the janitor keys on a ring that's on a big metal lock. And a lot of them have a string on them. So I didn't want to give it to him in the locker room. He's assaulting me because I didn't want him to use it as a weapon against me. But once I got out into the main area where there were cameras, it's funny, the college said that they had video evidence of me, and it's literally a video of me giving the supervisor my janitor keys. That's the video evidence they have. But because I didn't give him the janitor keys immediately, I'm trespassed from the campus for being sexually assaulted. The police waited 48 hours to take me to the hospital to do a SART exam, so there wouldn't be DNA. But the ER nurses actually yelled at the cop who took me to the hospital because they had to x-ray me before they took my blood pressure, because the bruises they corrected me and told me were contusions were so bad that they needed to make sure I didn't have internal bleeding or a hematoma before they could start the SART exam and take my blood pressure. And they were yelling at the cop because they told him that had I had internal bleeding, had I had a hematoma, him waiting 48 hours would have killed me. I would have died by them wanting to have PR instead of give me justice for being sexually assaulted. The campus didn't do anything because there was no DNA, and so nothing happened with that case is what I'm trying to explain. I didn't get justice for that. I didn't get anything. As a matter of fact, I got in trouble for being sexually assaulted is how that worked. If you want to know how sexual assault is treated in Alaska, look up Pirate. You can do that on Facebook, actually. You can look up Pirate, look up the name Pirate on Facebook, and there's an archive group of a guy with a face tattoo. That'll give you a great idea of how sexual assault is treated in Alaska. How sexual assault victims are treated in Alaska. So, I have to bring this up because I worked the night shift, and it was the night between one day into another day that this happened. I'm not going to shoot up the campus. I'm not going to shoot up the supervisor. I'm so mentally ill I can't have a job. And my therapist at ND Systems, before I graduated, told me that if I make a resume and talk to the ticket to work people at Social Security, I'll go to Seattle. There, 4th floor. I won't even go to Fairbanks, I'll just go to Seattle's 4th floor. So I can't work. I can't get a job. I'm not going to be a statistic like my country wants me to. And I don't want other mentally ill, and I don't want other mentally disabled people to fall into the trap of what our government wants them to do, which is to shoot up a building. I know that the United States wants mentally ill and disabled people to shoot up buildings. That's what they're only giving us that option, to fight for our rights and to right the wrongs that have happened to us. And I'm saying that as an insane person that's never bought a gun, and I'm saying that as an insane person that's never owned a gun. I'm gonna send mail, and I hope other mentally ill and disabled people also send mail. That's the only thing I can do. None of the mail I sent to the palace in Afghanistan has come back, and my government gave them that government. I didn't build a nuclear silo on the campus. The campus used rape money to build a nuclear silo on campus. You've already told me defending myself peacefully was a threat. The police literally told me defending myself peacefully was a threat. So I'm going to defend myself with mail. If you're not going to give me justice for what happened to me, if you're not going to help me with the sexual assault that happened to me, I'm going to send mail to people that will. Because you could have given me justice, and you taught me with your actions that you wanted me to use the statistical option instead, and I don't want to do that. And I'm an insane person, and it's frustrating because I go to these appointments and I do this stuff, and it's almost like I'm running a 5K, and every time I run a 5K, I gain 10 pounds. I don't lose weight. And it just gets to a point where, I'm gonna keep running. I'm not gonna give up. But it's getting to a point where I'm tired of running because I'm never losing weight. I just keep gaining 10 more pounds every time I try to run a 5K. And if I feel this way and I've never bought a gun, like I said, I can only imagine how people that have guns and are insane feel. People that own guns and are insane feel. You know? I don't know another way to fight for my justice. I don't know another way to give myself justice for what happened to me than to send mail. And so I'm gonna send mail, because that's the only way I know to defend myself. I've been trying to fight for justice for myself ever since that happened. It happened in 2019, and I will post on different Facebook things about it, and sometimes people will comment on the posts I make. Well, somebody commented about an organization called RAIN, RAIIN.org, I believe, and they deal almost specifically with sexual assault victims. They were like, you should contact them for help. So I did. I went on their website and filled out their online form, and a police officer actually called me because she told me that, and this is why I'm saying the country I live in is literally only giving disabled people and mentally ill people one option. The police officer told me that me filling out an online form to ask RAIN for help with my sexual assault was a threat. I threatened the campus because I asked RAIN for help with my sexual assault case. I was threatening the campus for asking for justice with myself, for contacting an organization whose whole thing, dealing with sexual assault victims, asking for help with my case, was threatening the campus. So asking for help, you can't even peacefully defend yourself, and you can't ask for help from another organization, because that's a threat. When you're not threatening, when you're defending yourself, or you're trying to ask another organization for help, you're still threatening. It's what I'm trying to explain. And that's not me saying. The police straight up told me that. Twice a cop told me defending myself and peacefully asking an organization for help was threatening. So me sending mail to Afghanistan, I tried to ask RAIN for help. You told me that was a threat. So how is me mailing Afghanistan? Is it a peace talk? Like, what are you going to call that? Sending mail is legal. You told me asking RAIN for help was a threat. You told me trying to defend myself with a piece of paper was a threat. So the only option I have besides trying to figure out how to buy a gun I don't even know how to buy, and don't even want to spend the money on, because it's so much more expensive than cat food and cat litter, is to mail. And I'm going to send mail. And you know what? I hope other mentally ill and disabled people send mail too, because that's really the only option. We need, please, if you're mentally ill, if you're mentally disabled, whether you're diagnosed or not, because that's the thing I keep seeing with the Uvalde show. he wasn't diagnosed, and yeah, you know what? When I was in high school, I don't think anybody ever sat me down and was like, this is what you have. You have this right here. I knew I had RAD, reactive attachment disorder. I didn't know I had any of the other stuff I know I have now, because nobody ever cared about my mental health care enough to tell me that, or to help me figure out what I had and help me with it. As a matter, they punished me for having the mental illness. That's how mental health care is treated in this country. And then when you try to be peaceful and try to get justice for what happened to you, police call you and tell you that you're threatening them. You're threatening people. We're trying to be peaceful. We're trying to get justice. You're a threat. Do you want to know why these mentally ill people, these mentally disabled people, are shooting up buildings? Because the police are telling them that's the only option they have. Because the Alaska Behavioral Health Center is literally telling them they're not going to get help unless they say that. And some of them think, I'm sure there's disabled people that think, well, if I say it and I get help, I bet you if I do it, I'll get even more help. And I'm saying that as an insane person that's never owned a gun. I'm saying that as an insane person that's never bought a gun. I don't even know how to do that. And that's the experience I have. And I tried to make it better. I've tried to see therapists. I've tried to see doctors. And that's the experience I've had. And I can only imagine how people, you know what? I kind of have an idea of how people feel that own guns. Because there's a school board member, and there's a lot of people that don't know this. This is a kind of specific Alaska thing. But I gotta talk about it because it's the only guy that has a mental illness that has guns that I know of. There's a school board member named Matt Sampson who has made public Facebook posts that he's stockpiling ammunition to take into schools. Again, I don't care what you believe. If you want to talk about me burning in hell on Wednesday evening, Saturday, and Sunday morning, do it. You want to burn me in effigy 100 times? If that's what gets you through your day, if that's what makes you happy, then you do it. You just don't burn down half of California, and you'll probably be fine. Do it, please. If that's what makes you get through the week, then do it. This guy's view of Christianity is such that he thinks he has to stockpile ammunition. And then when he goes into these schools, he's armed. So he has a gun on him. He walks into these schools with a gun, and then he harasses these school librarians because they have books in the school libraries that he doesn't like. Okay, so I don't know how it is in other places, but in Fairbanks, the schools have their own whole system where you can actually apply to get a book removed. There's like a whole form process you can fill out. It's not a big deal. Like, he's like going the illegal route and trying to shoot up a school. But if you really are concerned, if there's a book you don't want your kid reading in the school library, you just talk to the school librarian. You ask for a form. You fill out that form. It might take a few days, and then it's gone. It's a paper. You fill out a paper. That's all you have to do. But Matt Sampson is stockpiling ammunition, and I'm not saying this because it's nice. He made a Facebook post literally saying he's stockpiling ammunition. So now he's going into these schools armed with a gun and harassing the school librarian. He's stealing He's not going through that process. He's just taking the books. He's threatening these librarians with his guns, and he's stealing the books, and that's fine. If you're on the school board, you can be as mentally ill as you want to be if you're on the school board, and nobody has an issue. That's what I'm trying to say. You can literally walk into a school library with a gun and make Facebook posts about stockpiling ammunition, but because you're on the school board, nobody's going to care about your mental health. That's how mental health is treated in Fairbanks. That's how mental health is treated in Alaska. You want to know? I'm surprised. That's why I'm saying I'm surprised people are surprised that there are mentally ill, mentally disabled people that are going and shooting places up. Because it's like, I'm an insane person. I've never bought a gun. I've never owned a gun. But that the only option you have when something bad happens to you, if you get sexually assaulted, if your doctor wants to be abusive, you have an abusive girlfriend, you only have one option to fight for your rights. You only have one option to give yourself justice. And if you don't want to take that option, you just have to be, okay, something, I guess. I don't know what else. I don't know what to add to that. Because, like I said earlier, you can't afford a lawyer to sue these people. You can't ask for financial help for these people, to sue these people. And with the college, I can't ask the ACLU for help because they have a conflict of interest with the college. So a lot of people that have problems with the college can't sue them with the ACLU because the ACLU has a conflict of interest with the college. So they're setting it up to where they really only want you to use one option to get justice. And it sounds terrible because it is. And I'm just somebody that's trying to pay rent and feed my cats and try to keep myself alive and keep other people safe. And that's the system that's in place for me. And all of this stuff I've been through, all of the stuff, me trying to get Medicaid, me trying to see the doctors having the problems I've had, my adoptive parents don't care. They actually made it impossible for themselves to care. Okay? So you want to ask, like, where these guys' parents are. You want to ask why the volley shooter, he didn't have a diagnosis with his parents. I'm sure his parents were probably like, well, how would I look if I sent my kid to a therapist? How would people see me if I tried to get my kid mental health care? How would I look as a parent if my kid started having to take medication for his brain? So I wouldn't doubt, because my adoptive parents did that with me. I know it happens to other kids as well. And if my adoptive parents made the decision that a phone call is more difficult than kids dying, people dying, then I know there's other parents in this country that made the same decision. A phone call is more difficult than people dying. That's how mental illness is viewed in the United States. That's how mental illness is viewed between parents of the disabled kid and the disabled kid. A phone call, support, help is more difficult than kids and adults dying. And if my adopted parents made that decision, I know other parents in the United States made that decision with their mentally ill kids, their mentally disabled kids. And I had to make this recording because it's frustrating. I don't like talking about this stuff. I don't want to talk about my problems. I don't like talking about the mental illness. I don't like talking about my struggles. I don't like talking about the mass shooter stuff, But I have to. Somebody that's insane, somebody that's mentally ill, somebody that's currently trying to get mental health in this country has to talk about it. Because if nobody ever talks about it, how broken mental health is, and you just shove a bunch more people at mental health, more people are going to die. And I'm saying that as an insane person that's never owned a gun. I'm an insane person that's never bought a gun. I don't even know how to buy a gun. Excuse me. I'm going to talk a little bit about ND systems. I've talked a whole bunch about Alaska Behavioral Health, but I'm going to talk about ND systems now because they're an awesome place. Their main problems are that they're way too small and they don't have enough funding. They should be getting the funding the Alaska Behavioral Health Center is getting, but they're not. As far as I know, nobody stabbed each other at ND Systems property. So that should tell you right off the bat how the people are treated over there. But what I really like about ND Systems, and this also goes into why it's more than just a mental health issue, ND Systems will actually, and I don't understand why it's not done all over the country. It should be. I had been taking, like I said, I got prescribed lithium. I was taking propanolol, Abilify, Depakote, and my therapist thought it was weird that I was taking a combination of Abilify, Depakote, and propanolol. I can't remember what about that combination was weird, but she just said that that was a weird combination, and people don't usually take that combination. So there's a company called GeneSight, and they genetic test you, but it's not like Ancestry or anything like that. They're just genetic testing you to see what medications work best with you. So the test, they swab the inside of your cheek. You do it in the therapist's office, and then a couple weeks later they tell you, they give you a printout. You get to keep your own copy of the printout of what, and it's really easy to tell what works with you. It's they do a color system, with the green, body is gonna take that medication fine. Orange is it might not work, or only a specific dose might work, and then red is you shouldn't be in the same room as this medication, pretty much. Well, that was really nice because that helped me actually trust the therapist for the first time in my life, because they were finally yes, we want to give you mental health care, but we actually want to see what works with you. We're not just going to waste your time and throw pills at you and then just see when you happen to not go to the fourth floor. That's the one that works, which is the traditional method of giving mentally ill people medication. So I list these medications because the Alaska Behavioral Health Center was the ones that originally prescribed these medications to me. All the medications that I just said, lithium, Depakote, Abilify, propanolol, almost all of them were in the red except one, and the one that wasn't in the red was orange. None of the medications I had been prescribed were in green, which meant none of the medications I had been prescribed were working with me. They weren't doing anything positive for me. They were actually hurting me. Actually a detriment to my health. So I don't take any medications right now because the medications I was prescribed don't work for me. I am frustrated because I'm mentally ill enough that I can't get a job, but ND Systems doesn't have the funding and the space it needs to be the organization it could be. It's really nice, and the people there are extremely good and treat people with respect. I don't need a therapist right now, but I do need a case manager. ND Systems doesn't have case manager. My therapist, when I graduated, tried to set me up with a case manager, but they don't have any case managers, so I just don't see anybody right now. But at the same time, nobody's called to check up on me from ND Systems either. So I know I'm supposed to be getting a case manager at some point, is what my therapist said. It's been over a month, maybe 2 months, and I still haven't heard anything, and nobody's checked up on me. The only person that checks up on me is a really good friend of mine. I call him the grandpa man because he's like a grandpa. He looks like a grandpa. He comes and checks up on me like once a week or once every 2 weeks. But it's frustrating because you try so hard to just see a person and get help and get health care, and it's there, but you're just not going to get anything from it. And it's frustrating because you're trying to get help, and the people that are helping you either don't want to help you or they don't have the resources and the finances to help you the way that you need help. And I need to make this recording because, like I said, people need to understand from somebody that's actually getting mental health in America just how near non-existent that system is, just how near non-existent actual real help is. And that's if you try. That's if you go out of your way to try to. And another thing, if I had schizophrenia, if I had schizoaffective disorder, if my traumatic brain injury was so bad that I couldn't operate a car, I couldn't walk well, I would be dead. Because all of this trying to apply for disability, apply for benefits, deal with being a victim is with my own insane brain, on my own. I'm surprised people are surprised that insane people are shooting up buildings. I'm surprised people are surprised that mentally ill people are shooting places up. And I'm saying as an insane person, as a mentally disabled person that doesn't own a gun, that has never bought a gun, that's never owned a gun. And I'm saying I didn't like making this recording. There's a lot I didn't want to talk about, but I felt like I had to because if you tell people to focus on mental health, but you don't do anything to fix the mental health that's currently in place, more people are going to die. I'm going to use this as a similar example. If you want to take away guns in Alaska, but you don't improve the infrastructure so people have access to better, affordable groceries in the village and bush communities and they don't need guns to hunt, people are going to starve. The same thing can be applied to mental health. If you don't fix the mental health that's currently in place, and you start throwing hundreds or thousands of more people at the mental health that currently exists, more people are going to die. More people are going to get killed. They're either going to use the only option they see available to them, or they're going to die because they were neglected. They're going to die because they can't walk 4 miles to an office. They can't walk in 30 below weather for an hour to get to an appointment to fill a paper out. You're going to kill people. You're killing people already. You're going to kill more people. I don't have an answer as the insane guy. I don't have an answer as the mentally disabled guy. But I have to share my experience because There's enough mentally disabled and insane people in this country that at least twice a day, every day, they think the only option they have is to walk into a building with a gun. And I'm going to make this last point because it has to be said. Because this isn't just out of my own. I've had this conversation with other mentally ill and insane people, and I have to talk about it because it doesn't matter how you feel about this guy. It doesn't matter how you feel about what the case surrounding this man. None of the politics matters. Doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you right now, if I was in a room with this guy, we wouldn't have much to talk about. Okay. So, Kyle Rittenhouse. There might have been like an illusion in this country for a long time that the legal system was about right and wrong, or that the concept of right and wrong existed in law. It doesn't matter if you agree with Kyle Rittenhouse, if you disagree, if you think he should have had the gun he had, or he shouldn't have had the gun he had, if you think he should have shot those people or shouldn't have shot those people. None of that matters. None of that matters. It doesn't. His case taught people in this country that right and wrong doesn't exist with law. The law, right and wrong doesn't exist in law. It's only about defending yourself and staying alive. Kyle Rittenhouse isn't in jail because he defended himself and stayed alive. That's why he's not in jail. That's all the law cares about. If they cared about right and wrong, he'd be in jail. But they don't care about right and wrong. They only care about staying alive and defending yourself. So he's not in jail. Tatiana Jefferson, the cops that killed her because she was mentally ill and they shot her to death in her house for being mentally ill, they weren't fear for their life, so they defended themselves and stayed alive. So they didn't get in any trouble either. A lot of these cops that kill black people and don't get in any trouble because they defended themselves and stayed alive, the law doesn't care about right and wrong. It never cared about right and wrong. And that's what the Kyle Rittenhouse case proved. Right and wrong doesn't exist. It doesn't matter what your politics are on this issue either. Whether it has to do with guns or right, left, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, okay? He shot people because he thought he needed to defend himself and stay alive. And the court proved that right and wrong doesn't exist. It's only about staying alive and defending yourself. They didn't just teach me that. They taught every American that with that case. So you want to know why these mentally ill and disabled people are shooting places up? Because the justice system in this country taught everyone with the Kyle Rittenhouse case that right and wrong doesn't exist anymore. It never existed. It's only about defending yourself and staying alive. So if you get wronged by somebody, if you get sexually assaulted at a college, and you want to defend yourself from further sexual assault because the cops don't care about your life, then you can defend yourself and stay alive, because right and wrong don't exist in America anymore. It sounds terrible because it is. It sounds terrible because it is. And I'm saying that as an insane guy that's never bought a gun. I'm saying that as an insane guy that's never owned a gun. As an insane guy that doesn't even know how you buy a gun in this country. You want to know why mentally ill people, why the Uvalde guy thought he could go into that school and shoot it up? Because people say, like, he didn't have a diagnosis. As somebody that's mentally ill and has tried to get health care in this country, you could see a therapist for years and not get a diagnosis. You could see a therapist for a long time and not get a single diagnosis. You could get help. you could try to get help, you could ask for help, and you're told you're a threat. The police will tell you you're a threat. You're threatening people for trying to get help. That's how mental illness is viewed in the United States. Because that guy, I can't remember his name, but the gentleman that put a bunch that made an armored bulldozer and then drove around his town, the only gun he had to use on himself. But you know what? He was put into the same situation many disabled and mentally ill people in this country are put in, where they are literally only given one option to defend themselves, and they're going to use it. And I have to make this recording because, 20 people died at that school, and most of them were kids, because somebody didn't get mental health that they needed to get, and people are saying focus on mental health, and the mental health that exists is nearly non-existent. I'm saying I've used the word system in this recording. That's not because I think it's a system. That's just because I can't think of another word to put in place of the word system to talk about this non-existent thing that's in place for people, that their brain makes it to where you can't take care of yourself. You can't function as a regular person, whether it's for a couple hours, whether it's for a day, a week, for years, your whole life. I'm frustrated because nobody wants to help the people that might do what happened in Uvalde. They might do what happened at the grocery store, might do what happened at church, might do what happened at Parkland, might do what happened at Sandy Hook, until it's already happened. And I have to make this recording because as an insane person that's never owned a gun, never bought a gun, the only person that's keeping me from buying a gun is myself. The only person that's keeping me from shooting up a building is myself. So I feel like I had to make this because, I don't know what the dude in Uvalde was going through to where he thought he had to go kill a bunch of kids in his school. But for him to be able to put credit at a gun store like that, and his parents never, I don't want to get into not factual, I just like stuff I'm grabbing from thin air, but I just know, the parents should have known, and if they didn't, then they didn't know who their kid was, and that guy should have got help, because if he had gotten help, he probably could have spent all that money on it. I know it was his credit at that store, but he could have done credit at a car dealership and gotten a new car or something, or done some kind of credit thing with real estate. They got a house, I have to make this recording because nobody's actually talking to it's always like they talk to the victims and then they talk to people. They say that these mentally ill and mentally disabled people are going to shoot these places up. And if you genuinely think that the only option you have to solve a problem or get out of a situation is to shoot up a building, even if you've never seen a therapist, even if you've never been diagnosed with a mental illness, you should at least talk to a person. You should at least spend 5 minutes with somebody. And I'm frustrated because the people that are saying just focus on mental health are basically telling people to keep doing what they're doing, and what they've been doing is shooting at buildings. And I'm not going to shoot up a building. I'm not going to buy a gun. I don't even know how to buy a gun. I don't own a gun. But if this is the experience I've had, and I've actually tried to get help, and I've actually tried to see doctors, tried to make and keep appointments, tried to take medication, even when I found out later that it was actually harmful to my well-being in my life, I can only imagine the people who... My mental illness only kept me from doing things sometimes. But there's people whose mental illness keep them from doing things all the time, or most of the time. And they can't wait 2 years. They can't, if the Alaska Behavioral Health Center tells them that they're banned, they're gonna die. They're gonna kill somebody. And I don't know how that's not the Alaska Behavioral Health Center's fault. Because if you're a mental health provider, and you tell somebody, well, instead of you helping you not be a mass shooter, we're going to make it impossible for you to not be a mass shooter, I don't know how you're not teaching them that with your actions. That's why I've been saying in this recording, actions speak louder than words, because they do. I've been told dozens of times I'm going to get a grant. I've never gotten a grant. But if you say you're afraid I'm going to be a mass shooter, and then you make it impossible for me to not be a mass shooter because you won't let me get help from you, and the other place in town graduates from me, and then I never hear from them again, well, I don't own a gun. I've never bought a gun. But like I said, there's people who are insane and mentally ill who have guns, who own guns. I can't even imagine how those people feel. The only person I know that's mentally ill that has guns is Matt Sampson, and he's stealing library books and threatening librarians, stockpiling ammunition, and taking his guns into libraries. If you want it to be a mental health issue, you need to completely redo how mental health is done in this country. Because if you don't, and you just keep saying it's a mental health issue, more people are going to die. And I don't know what to say.